thank you for standing up for a free Russia. With that, we now proceed to Congressman Cohen, and each person will have a very strict 5-minute participation, because I want to make sure that Congresswoman Manning gets to get 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Kara-Murza, you've and the panel have done a marvelous job of bringing up issues which need to be addressed by America and other democracies. I thank each of you for being here and for making your remarks and your suggestions. When we last were together, the Commission made clear that we wanted to see Vladimir designated as a wrongfully detained. Have you had any contact with the State Department since that hearing?
No, unfortunately, I haven't had.
Have you attempted to?
I'm always open to contact. I'm always open to anything that they might be willing to share with me as to where their efforts go. But nothing has, no progress has been made as far as I know.
Difficult for us to get them to respond to. Sometimes I think they're a foreign nation, because the efforts to have them respond have been nil, and it's very frustrating. I know Mr. Blinken, Secretary Blinken, has the right values, but he doesn't act. Without action, values are limited. Mr. Genzer, you've talked about changes to the Levinson Act. I know there are many that are there that you suggest. What do you think would be an effective way to get the State Department to respond, to get Levinson Act to be such that it's more effective?
Yeah, I mean, I think you only learn when legislation is actually being implemented what the gaps are going to be between the aspiration and the reality. And I think that we've seen a lot of challenges with the Levinson Act and its implementation. You know, there are other cases. Of course, I've mentioned Thierry Seng in Cambodia, and Vladimir's case is just as emblematic as Thierry's case as well. But I also know cases of Americans who've been, for example, the subject of decisions of the UN calling them held illegally in Saudi Arabia, who have not been designated. Another case as well in the UAE. And so, you know, we need to close those gaps. And so I think we need some forcing mechanisms here in terms of amendments to the Levinson Act. I think requiring a person to be actually assigned to the job of working with a family and their advocates is really, really important. In the year and a half I've been working on Thierry Seng's case, a similar time frame as Vladimir's, literally I can't find a human being at the State Department willing to talk to me about why they came up with the determination that they did. And you know, anytime I try to reach out to various parts of the State Department, I'm always sent back to the consular official in Phnom Penh, who has no ability to have any conversation about the substance of the Levinson Act determination process.
Thank you for your work. I appreciate it. Professor, you're a hero, somebody I have great admiration for, and thank you for your lifetime's work. I hope to fashion myself as best I can in the same model that you have. But there are times, Virginia said, you know, Lincoln said there's no other alternative than to be an optimist. Elie Wiesel said, you know, you can't have, despair can't be the answer, it must be hope. I get that. But with Putin, what can be done to make Putin respond and act like a reasonable human being? And you know, you mentioned that your neuropathy is Russian law. You're supposed to be real. Putin doesn't care about Russian law. Putin is the law. What can we realistically do with Putin to try to get him to release prisoners or to
Well, I think we have to, in fact, pursue, I would say, not only justice for victims, but accountability. And in this case, the importance of having an independent international tribunal for the crime of aggression, leadership crimes, as the Nuremberg Tribunal called it, where the military and political leadership in Putin's Russia can therefore be held accountable, because the ICC and other bodies do not have that jurisdiction. And I might add parenthetically, because reference was made, and we've been talking about declaring him an arbitrarily detained person under Vladimir Cameron, the Levinson Act. If a country like Canada, which has been mentioned, is not only part of the a partner in the community of democracies with the U.S., not only a neighbor, but we are like family. If we could get both houses of the Canadian Parliament, as we did, both the House of Commons and the Senate, to unanimously confer upon Vladimir Kara-Murza honorary citizenship, the least you would think that our neighbor in the U.S. can do is have him declared an arbitrarily detained person. Sometimes it's good for the U.S. to follow Canada's example, as Canada has often followed the U.S. example. That kind of joint leadership and the leadership of the community of democracies, where we should not have a situation like we recently witnessed, where somebody like Putin, who is under an international arrest warrant, is welcomed by Xi Jinping in China, who has an obligation to, in fact, enforce that arrest warrant, but in fact welcomes Putin. So what we need is to combat this corrosive axis of evil by an intensified partnership amongst the community of democracies.
Thank you, sir. And my 5 minutes are up, but I think we need to remember another Canadian, Leonard Cohen, who wrote about the crack in the wall where the light gets in. We got to find that crack. I yield back.
I might add parenthetically, Leonard Cohen was a close friend and lifelong colleague of mine.
And thank you, Congressman Steve Cohen. And it's not a surprise that there are a number of Cohens of distinction. And so, and we now proceed to Congressman Mike Lawler of New York.
Thank you, Chairman. Certainly